very lucky to have the Haggertys here today. I think you all know the Haggertys. I think I can safely assume that, partly because they've talked today and also because they're famous and they're fabulous and they've done extraordinary things. And I think it's also worth I know it's been mentioned before, but let's mention again the fact that these people just won the Western Australian 2025 Australians of the Year, and that is absolutely so exciting and wonderful. And it's particularly exciting and wonderful, I think, because it's an award given to farmers, to agricultural people, and when you're up against biochemical engineers and all the rest of it, all the usual suspects, it really signals something positive and very good for all of us. I think that's happened. So congratulations again. I'm afraid I can't say a lot about you, Matt, because we've only just met and I don't know a huge amount about you, but we're going to find out more now. The other thing I guess I should say about the award is that it gives you an incredible opportunity to as a platform to start talking about things. So I'm just going to get myself onto the stage without falling over. That's the first thing. It's nice and cosy up here. Okay, so I think it would be, what we're going to do, I guess, is to investigate this idea of the supply chain, why it's important, because I think for a lot of farmers it's not necessarily something they think they can control or they can actually participate in. It's something that happens outside. But maybe to start with, just so we can explore that, can you talk a little bit about how you farm, or rather what you farm, because you have a diversified farm, and I think it's interesting to understand what you do, and then let's look at the different parts of your farm and how supply chain affects those different parts of the farm. And the other thing I'd like to talk about, maybe you can talk about it, Matt, is how you work as a family and who does what. So shall I pass on to you guys to talk about?
I guess we're a mixed farm. We've got primarily, we probably put about 14,000 hectares of cereal crops and multi-species cover crops in a season, and we run merino sheep for lamb markets and wool. They're the key products that we have at the moment.
For meat as well as wool?
Yes.
Yeah, so for meat and for wool, but why they're just the normal type products, probably rather than putting in a product characteristic, but one of the main things that we're looking at the values never put on is our ecosystem. So not just carbon in the ground that can be sequestered in the ground, but also measuring the whole outcomes of an increased, better biodiverse ecosystem. So why you have trouble putting a value of that on your spreadsheet, on your bottom line, but it's still there because that's the most important driver of the system.
And then, I guess so for us as a family, me and Dad work primarily on the cropping side of things, and Mum and Beck do more on the sheep side of things. We overlap a lot. And then we've also got Rachel. She kind of jumps between the cropping and the sheep side. And it becomes a really great little team atmosphere we've got here. Everyone works together. So if the sheep side needs extra set of hands, me and Dad will be in there helping out, or vice versa. If we need help shifting machinery, Mum and Beck always pull around to help everything keep moving ahead because we've all got the same goal in mind. It's just, everyone usually sticks to what they're more skilled at, and then if we ever need a hand, everyone gets together.
I think the key to the system what's really been really good, the team is probably 65, probably nearly 70% women. So why they're the key guys, we have Tanya come in and do our compost extracting. So she lives on a farm next door, so she comes in and out. We have Jared come in and do he's a brilliant engineer and great heavy duty diesel mechanic. So he comes in and we bring some seasonal staff in to, sit behind the steering wheel of harvesters and things like that as well. So it's really, and those team are all pretty young. Di and I, the old crew, and so the harvest team out there now are actually my other two sons, James and Josh, are both driving road trains for us at the moment. But the rest of the crew and the headers are all 23 and under. So it's really great to see.
So I think what that speaks to is something that I think we'll probably get into in terms of your approach to the supply chain, which is also, the idea of having a diverse group of people who are feeding into the culture and the community of the business. So you're talking about women, you're talking about young people, you're talking about, creating the kind of dynamic that produces good ideas, new ideas, fresh thinking, and also a sort of vitality, which is really important. And if you're welcoming that in, then that's going to make a difference. I understand, Matt, from your mum that, I shouldn't say your mum, from Di. I'm a mum and I do that a bit, it's terrible. But I understand that you are also really interested in kind of the marketing side of things, and that's kind of your focus as well. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, no, that's correct. I love the day-to-day work on the farm. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll happily enjoy sitting on a tractor for 14 hours doing a night shift. It's quite enjoyable. Put my podcast on and watch the field go by. It's quite good. But my deep passion definitely lies in the marketing side of things, and that, very much the public-facing side. Mum and Dad have done a terrific job working with farmers, and I think that's definitely like the next step is, I guess, the marketing side, the supply chain, which is why we're here today. And I think that's what's so exciting about what Mum and Dad do, or everyone in this space does, is it adds so much more excitement into the ag industry of potential to diversify your business away from just purely putting a crop in the ground or grazing animals and then just selling it off to the general market. You can actually do a lot more with your own produce, have more of a say, become more towards a price maker instead of a price taker, and be more involved with that from start to finish. And you'll get so much more reward for that as a farmer as well, seeing your product go from the whole way through. And for me as a young person, I think that adds a lot of excitement for younger generations, as they can do more than just drafting sheep most days or whatever it might be. There's different avenues and adds more diversity to your day-to-day life, which the younger generation I think really enjoy. And especially for women, maybe women or guys wouldn't want to be labouring outside all day. They can actually be a part of this agricultural space, but still satisfy their marketing passion or whatever it might be.
I think the good thing about with the whole team on board, collaboratively on board, so we talk about our farm and we talk about our ecosystem, our soil life, and we all talk about collaboration, working as a collective, working as a whole, because that's what makes it work. But working as the team as a whole, so everyone's there collaborative in what's going on. Every chance we get, I think we call it the coffee club, everyone's sitting around the kitchen table drinking coffee, like we wear coffee machines out like it's going out of fashion, and just brainstorming. How do we do this? What more can we do? So from all the young ones to the older ones to everyone through about, how can we improve this? How can we make this better? Where do we have to have, more impact of what we're doing?
So, I was just thinking for you, the question that you said too, Laura, was just alluding to the potentials for relationships, and I think also the case of finding your own story that you can value add into the marketplace. And I think that's what has unfolded for us over time, is just seeing, the value of the story that might intrigue customers or people, and then also that attracting, I guess, partnerships within that supply chain. So like the baker that approached us to source our grain, he found out about us fortuitously somehow or other and approached us if we'd like to supply him, because he had a deep passion for being able to source local grains, be able to mill it on site and then bake it the next day to sell with the optimum nutritional content being maintained. So I think, if you've got that unique story too, and then someone else within the chain that wants to portray a unique side for themselves as well, coming together to collaborate and get that to the consumer is just a wonderful thing. So it's been really effective on the grain side, and we have got some early stage relationships with the meat as well, and the wool too we've got some really good direct relationships there, and we recently went to LA and spoke to some big brands at the Textile Exchange Conference, and they're really understanding these kind of stories, and climate awareness and so forth, and social justice and all those kind of things are massive issues globally. And yeah, they really latched on to our story. We had a very brief 40-minute little spotlight session that they just thought, wow, they really wanted to be engaged. So I think that's really encouraging to see that the big brands are looking for these kind of things too. So I guess, yeah, early days, but stepping up those relationships so that you can deal more direct and at least shorten those relationship chains too, so that you are communicating directly with the person that's the retailer at the end of the day.
The interesting thing is, when Maddie talks about getting the food to the people, is by getting that supply chain right, we can supply this very good quality food. Because you hear around the traps that, people on a lower income can't afford good quality food. They've got to actually buy the crap, which is wrong. We've got to feed our whole population. But if we get that supply chain right, we can supply the best of quality food to the consumer at a very reasonable price, and there doesn't have to be out of their price range. Like, we put a percentage of our grain into our bakery markets, which is just extremely good, but we're a fairly large scale farm, and I was actually just doing some figures. We're harvesting at the moment, about halfway through harvest, and I was just looking at bread, for example, and I was looking at 1 metric tonne of wheat at a 70 to 75% conversion ratio into flour, and the biggest selling bread at the moment, which is really sad, is a whole white loaf, processed white loaf of grain, right, which is probably the worst bread you could eat. And I've asked around, because I've never bought a loaf of bread actually, and what a loaf of bread in Woolworths or someone might be, and I'm guessing it's around, for a reasonable quality loaf, it might be $3.50. I might be corrected, but say if it was $3.50, by mid-January this year, when we finish harvest, if we converted what grain I put into the commodity market into loaves of bread, that's $94 million worth of bread at the low price of the bread. Our bread at the bakery, and I could be a bit wrong, sells for around about these massive big sourdough loaves for about $8 or more, a bit more at the bakery. And the biggest problem is no one can buy it because it's always sold out. That's $200 million worth of quality bread being there. And then you stop and ask, and you look at the supply chain, what will I receive in my bank account out of that $94 million, even if you take it on the bottom low commodity scale? Probably $4 million. So really interesting.
They made a really good point about that at the Textile Exchange Conference. It was actually brought up, especially by farmers on multiple occasions, that, out of the full supply chain, same thing when it comes to fashion, if you put it all into a pie chart, the fashion brand looks like basically covers 99% of it, and the slither that the farmer got at the end was so minimal you actually couldn't even view it without zooming into the pie chart. And this was the biggest talking point. The conference was, we need to change this because the farmers are the ones doing a lot of the work, and yet you're the brands coming towards farmers saying, we need this from you, we need these metrics from you so we can meet our requirements, so we can, use it for our marketing. But then you've got them getting the bare minimum for it. So by taking, as a farmer, it more into your hands to market your own produce, you can actually, and the brands are now aware of this and they want to be able to work closer with farmers. They're actually really becoming aware of that storytelling aspect and the power behind that, and they're getting really excited after hearing the farmer stories at that conference of what they can actually do with this. And so by going, I guess, getting out of your shell and going and doing your own marketing and things like that, the return that you could get could be really, really powerful, and just the return for your own, I guess, self-worth and value of seeing your own produce, whether it be a grain, a meat or a fibre, to end up in a final product that you can eat or wear. For a farmer, it means a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the problems we have in our food system is that most of the people who produce the food don't actually have any kind of connection with the consumer, the person who actually eats or cooks that food, because most people sell into a commodity market and they've got no idea where it goes, and that in itself is a problem. We know that. But I think you guys are doing extraordinary work, because you've got the capacity, the talent, the insight, the experience to actually see the opportunity and leverage that opportunity. And we need to get into a discussion about abattoirs too, because that's really interesting, because you've talked about grain. So what about your other products and how you go about doing those? But I also think maybe it's not so straightforward for a lot of people, even though it's a very seductive, attractive idea to take control of that supply chain. And as someone who works at the other end of the spectrum, dealing with consumers, there's a real reluctance to spend, and that's quite hard to pass that value down the chain. But can you maybe talk a little bit, you've talked a little bit about grain and what you're doing to enhance the supply chain or take, ownership of that supply chain. So it's a single a single bakery you're working with, is that correct? Or are you planning to expand that? And then if you could talk about the lamb as well, or the abattoir side of things.
Yeah, I'll touch on the bakery part. Yeah, so at the moment is the one bakery of having conversations with multiple others who are really keen to get our grains into this. No, we're not milling at the moment. That is also the next part of our phase, is trying to work out how we can actually mill our own products, because that's where we fall short. A lot of bakeries don't want to mill it themselves. They don't have the access to a mill. They just want to buy it in bags of flour. They want the product, but they need it in flour. So that's another step in the mission that we're working on, is to get our own mill and also to be able to process our own meat and things like that as well. So it's more easily accessible for your butchers or your bakeries and things like that to be able to get our product. And so we're also offering a better product for them as well.
So it's been a couple of things in collaboration that's come together, and it probably wasn't intentional to start off with. I heard in one of the earlier speaks today, and I think it was with Jim and Tarns, and about land, and we've grown in land volume, and that wasn't an intention of ours. But when you're in this when you change your psyche of how you view land, how you view environment, land actually, we found, has just come to us. Opportunity comes to us, and you sit back and you think, nah, too much out of my comfort zone. I'm not going to risk myself and go and take that because something up next door's come up. And you think, but then you see where it's going to go to into the market. A lot of foreign investment, a lot of go totally into trees or into a huge different system, and the land's calling out to you. So you just say, "Oh, blow it," and we've probably done that a bit too much, and just gone to the bank and bought it, and what? I'm afraid to say it has been because we've got to be really careful, because also in today's conversation about the banks, the banks have been very good to us. We've been with one of the big fours for 30 plus years now, and that's when we started with $100,000 deposit on a block of land, and they've supported us all the way through. And the good thing about them is they realise at a local level their limitations. They'd like to just keep bought a big farm in 2023. And want to buy another big one right now, but we realise we're just pushing the barrow a bit too far with the bank, And they say, we'd love to go again with you guys, but they realise their limitations, because they have about 6 different levels in the bank, but level 3 doesn't support to level number 4, and it doesn't get through to the top. So this is where things like Stewart and all these other things coming in are really good to give us diversity. Once again, everything gets back to collaboration, relationships, and diversity of actually how you go about building things. So one of the results then, so it's grown, because we have trouble saying no to land, but it's screaming out to us saying, come and repair me. So we go for it. But what the outcome of that's been is it's built a scale. And then when we look at marketing, like with our wool market, because we've got a volume, and we could just fill containers ourselves off our own clip. So then when we're over talking to the Stellas or the Versace's or whoever it is about the wool, we can just really hone in on that marketing of where it's coming from, what's going on, and where it is, and establish the market. Now, once you've got that market established, then we can invite other farmers in. And it's mainly getting that establishment. But you stop and think, if we were to do that from base 1 and we had and I can't say it can't be done, but it'd be a lot harder. Had to bring 8 different farmers in, all with different stories, all trying to talk. It's a lot harder to do. So part of our result out of scale was being able, let's use that scale to have an advantage for everyone else, that we can build a market and we can open the doors to everyone else.
Yeah, I guess in that wool story was a case of you had to have enough to fill a container so it could have its own mill run, be processed on its own, to have the quality parameters verified with their own feeling and, testing that they do for themselves. So if we had to blended it at that stage, it wouldn't have been able to verify the story that was going on. And as far as the lamb market goes, we send the lambs to a local abattoir. It's very difficult in Western Australia to get service kills done. More of the abattoirs are closing down to that. So there's definitely only one up our neck of the woods. So we just have to make sure we can maintain a weekly delivery, because if we don't do that, see you later, and you really struggle to get back in. So that's a cost to our business having to do, because we're only delivering 20 a week at the moment. Barely viable at doing that, but we've got a position. We've got a relationship with the abattoir. They know that we're reliable. So that as Matthew does his wonders in working out with more direct relationships for ourselves, we've got a spot there. If we didn't have that, we'd be, you wouldn't be able to do that. And hence the idea of having our own on-farm processing set up at some stage. And there's been talk about an mobile abattoir for sale, sort of prick the ears up at that. So anyway, there's a lot of things that we'd like to do so that we can be assured of that opportunity, and then making sure that the right animals end up to the right place, because there's always been the logistics too of the transport companies, and that batch of lamb's gone somewhere else, and by the time they've tracked it down, they've already been cut up and distributed, and say, well, what happens to my precious animals that were all, very carefully prepared for a certain market, and they've gone into Woolies or somewhere else. I don't know where they ended up, but just to make sure those things don't happen, you've got to be, it is a big job to try and make sure it gets right the way through if you're not got some involvement there.
I think, so what we look at it, and this is part of our brainstorming as a crew, this is what we've got to deal with in that lamb market. Now, we've got enough lambs to quadruple that weekly, but until we actually get some more markets going along, and we've got markets going along that are good, but some of those markets aren't value enough market. They're good, but they're not good enough. And so we're just going to keep it at that level. But as we crank up, and we probably will, because we'll be matching what we can do quite easily, and it will be worthwhile, what will then allow us to do with that extra volume is we might actually then put our own truck on the road from the abattoir to the processing at the end of the line. So everywhere we can take some risk out of that chain, the better. Because, some of our risk being is the abattoir's doing a fantastic job. They're really good, and they're one of the big multinationals, but by having a relationship, it gets back to relationships as well, it's worked really good. And giving them consistency, they know they've got that regularly. But then everything's going well, processing good on the other end, then old mate driving the truck. Had a bad day, and drops the lambs off and drops the wrong lambs off, and old mate thinks the lamb's a lamb, isn't it? Doesn't matter who gets what, so everywhere you can shorten that up and try and get that right until you actually improve the system, the better.
And I think I've probably heard it a million times, but once you're able to shorten that supply chain, the farmer ends up getting more in their pocket, so they can be able to continue regenerating their landscape. But then it also brings the product to the consumer, the people, at a cheaper price as well. So it works well for everyone. And everyone's probably heard it a million times, but it makes so much sense for you to take a bit more power back into the farmer's hands, and become more of a price maker, and just not giving a shitload of money to the big boys, I guess.
I can really relate to that thing of the missing animals, the truck driver turning up or where, it's really, really annoying. So I guess that begs the question, you're a diversified business, you're farmers, basically what you're becoming is a whole bunch of different things. You're becoming logistics experts, you're becoming marketing experts, you're becoming, you're farmers, you're going to become processors. Like, at what point, while vertical integration is kind of the holy grail, at what point do you want to continue doing it all yourselves? Like, is that the most sensible way to do it? Does it get too big? Does it get too unwieldy? And do you spread yourselves too thin? Or do you think that you just collect the right community around you when it happens? Like, because you're doing it all yourselves rather than collaborating with other people.
It's all of that, and I agree with you. You can spread yourself too thin. And before Matthew came home, Beck came on board. Like, we've had a lamb market running to the city for probably 18 years now, and we were going great guns. We were putting thousands of lambs into it when Di and I. But as the farm expanded a bit, we kind of let that go on the back burner a bit because that was just stretching ourselves too thin. So it's about bringing the people in. And what I really like about the people that we're attracting to the farm just aren't farmers. They're from all different warps of life, all different logistics. So that's when we all get together and collaborate and who's best to do what. And everyone takes a role of where things go, and we all overlap and back each other up. But another thing is too, if we have to push ourselves to get things established for a short period of time, that's what we'll do. Major General Michael Jeffries, really installed into us, you can always do a lot more. It's amazing what you can do if you put your mind to it, you get your head to it and have a go. Because once you start to get that in process, things will come online, and it does. So you put it out there and you think, gee, how am I going to handle this? Things come online. I remember with the farm size, I thought, well, how are we going to crop 5,000 hectares? That's a push. How are we going to crop 7,000 hectares? That's a push. Now we're cropping 15,000 hectares, and it's easier. It goes, because you bring things in place. Like, put it out there and it will come. And if you've got the right efforts to put it out there.
And then same goes in the collaboration space. You put yourself out there, all of a sudden you come across someone, you meet someone who's like, yes, like, I want to be a part of this, I want to jump on board. How can I bring my knowledge and skills to come and be a part of this, help you on, achieving this end goal? They might already have a business in that space and say, all right, let's work together. It'll support you, it supports us, and everyone's happy at the end of the day.
I think the same thing goes with creating more economy in it by creating more value into the product back to the farmer at the end of the day. Then you've got more opportunity to be more open to other people coming in too, because our middle son, who's a heavy duty diesel mechanic, but he's a truck salesman as well and very good at what he does, but he's got a really good mind for logistics, and you mentioned that. And there's all these things that as you can build greater strength in your business foundation, that he can come, he doesn't want to necessarily be under our thing, so what we're wanting to do, but he can come in and see all the bits that need doing and set up his own part, within the system of the farm, I guess. And the same with everybody that comes on board. They bring their own skill set and find their own way, but it's just adding to the richness, but also the resilience and the capability of that business to be highly profitable too, because you've got a vast range of skill sets and a vast range of strongly motivated individuals being part of it.
It's a very interesting and inspiring model. I mean, we work with farmers who often don't feel like they can extend themselves that far. So we provide a kind of a point in that cycle to support them. But I think every farmer I've ever met harbours a desire to be able to do it all themselves and to be able to have that direct connection. But failing that, I suppose what you want to do is find collaborators who can then tell your story to the consumer, because in the end, what we want is that push back down the line, that feedback loop back from the consumer to you guys. Do you want to add anything more to that? Because if not, I might throw it open to questions. Go.
Just wanted to add one more thing. Not everyone does want to go the extra mile to be able to do their own direct-to-market and things like that, and that's kind of where my vision of where I want to take natural intelligence farming in the future is, once we've, established a bit of a market around our story and things like that, and do our own processing, I'll be able to bring other farmers on board who, want to be a part of it, but don't necessarily want to, do their own logistics and their own marketing and things like that, but they're also producing this brilliant product, and to be able to, work together to put more money back into the farmers' pockets, so then they can continue focusing on what they're good at and what they know, and continue creating a great product.
So your abattoir, for example, if you build it, you would process for other people and then market their product as well? And would you foreground them, or would you sell it under your brand?
Yeah, a bit of both with the Natural Intelligence Farming brand, but along with, their farm name as well, because, that's all a part of their story. Everyone's got their own individual story, and that's, from that's another marketing potential to tell that story. Consumers love that. They'll be able to sit there and go, look, there's, for us, our farmers prospect, there's some prospect lamb, there's some lamb from this farm. It's all Natural Intelligence Farming lamb, and they can take their pick. They might prefer to go with this lamb from another farmer because it's closer to home. They really can relate to their story of how they've gone about their farm. It's there's so much potential there of where you can build things.
Yeah, we're planning on building a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, because I think any of you know that have dabbled in this, everything works well till it hits the metropolitan area. And metropolitan area, you lack time, space, parking, and everything's got to happen quick because it's on a truck, so you just got to get it somewhere, and it all just goes to crap. And but to have a warehouse on the thing, we can actually bring it down, store, take our time. And the main thing for that too is to be able to invite other farmers into the platform. So you might have old mate up in Carnarvon with bananas and doing a really good job of it and having the same issue, whether it be bananas or lamb or whatever it be. Bring them down, store them, use our platform, get it out to a market, and still have control of that product right the way through to the person that buys it, right the way through, whether it be a restaurant or what it is. So it keeps them in full control. But then as that collaboration grows, that's how the markets grow as well, because old mate with his mangoes going to a restaurant and they love his mangoes, all of a sudden decide they want lamb. So it crosses over and all the way around. So as that grows, that's how that business will grow. And it's giving true traceability to the consumers what's through. So then once we get that network going, we can wrap a whole lot of education around that. By having a facility, we can invite people in, we can have venues and just really put some whole lot of public education around it.
Well, there's a model for the future. I think we'll all put our hands up. I'm up for a job too. So I might hand it over to you guys now. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I've actually got two questions. One is at one end and one is at the other. So at the end that you were talking about, where you've actually taken your crop or your fibre off the farm, have you considered blockchain technology, and have you utilised that at all?
Have you considered blockchain technology, and have you utilised it at all?
It's definitely been in the conversation, especially more around like the verification process. How can we utilise it? It's still something that is trying to understand it more, and the more we've been putting the research into it, the more like, we could actually utilise it in this aspect as well. So the conversations definitely be around it, and especially around more of the verification side of things, and also talking to on the wool side, the brands on the other perspective, talking to them about it, like how can we use this for verification, also traceability, because that's the perfect thing about blockchain technology, is the traceability. It's all open, and that is the big thing, especially at Textile Exchange Conference, is the massive thing at conversation was traceability. How can the people buying the garments see the traceability of exactly the whole supply chain of this product, see the story of the farmer, etc. And I think that's where blockchain technology can come in.
So those big brands also, they are increasingly required and regulated to provide that traceability stuff, because they've got approved biodiversity credits, they've got to do all of that stuff. So
and I think that's where blockchain technology can really help everyone, because if your verification and your data is wrapped in with that, the brand could basically purchase that off you, which puts more money into the farmer's pockets, but it also gives the brand their data they need. So it kind of supports both people. So it could be worked in very well there.
So how do we wrap that into a garment? that's sold in London or New York or somewhere like that is we take a verified ecological token of that blockchain technology and what that all explains, and we possibly stitch that into the garment. So then to have the circular economy at the end of the life of that garment, that token still has a value. So that can either be reused, removed on, but it shows the true verification of that and the ecosystem services it's taken to do that. So it won't create waste, it'll create a circle. There's still a value of it at the end of its life.
So yeah, all of a sudden when you've got your $300 fully woolen jacket, you're not going to, I might just go, donate or something. This has actually still got $30 worth of this ecological value in this token that I could, repurpose back in and actually gain that back.
Yes.
Love what you're doing, guys. I think it's just a fabulous model. The question that's come to me a couple of times on when you start collaborating and you end up going down, you're saying you're going to get something close to town. You're now going back to, the wholesale sort of model here. I love the fact that you're going to keep control, you're going to keep that label for yourself, but including others is where it all starts to get a bit messy. Do you see yourself being able to set up a structure that keeps it not messy?
I just have to repeat the question. I'm a little bit... so the question is, when you start bringing others in and selling other products from other farmers, will you put in place a product structure or a structure that makes sure that there's that clarification of different...
Well, when it comes to quality like that, I have to be practicing the natural intelligence farming practices to get the natural intelligence farming branding. Yeah, exactly. And it's not going to really be a certification. We're not really looking down that pathway, but yeah, we'll definitely look at some way of, verifying that they are doing natural intelligence farming on that, and that is a natural intelligence farming produce. So yeah, there'll be a little bit of, structure around it, sorting that out.
We'll be very careful how we, as it gets to that stage, how we unfold that. Very careful, because I don't know if you know, in Western Australia we run a cooperative bulk handling system for grain, and I think there's only about 2,500 of us growers left that own it, and it's worth probably over $4 billion now. It was 3 a while ago, so it's worth a lot of money, and us 2,500 acres growers own it. Now that's got out of control a bit, where the growers don't have a lot of say, and there's boards, and it's just no better than actually going anywhere else, So it's a really example that we all live with and have experienced, but we can learn lessons from that of how we actually go forward and how we do it. So more about, as we go forward, having, even though they might be part of a brand, but the grower has the ownership of that, right the way through to the price point where they might be if he's the mango grower, and right the way through. We'll fold that into it. So the more we can have the person that grows the product dealing with their customer, but using some system in the middle where we can assist and unfold that. And as we grow it, by setting the foundation, the people will come and there'll be advice come. And we've seen this weekend the knowledge out there is huge. So that really encourages us to keep going forward, because I'm sure nothing's an impossibility. That's the really good thing about all of this and all that's going on, and you hear around the world, all this negativity, we've only got, UN says we've got 50 to 60 harvests left, all this doom and gloom, 2.7 temperature by this. But the really exciting thing is, as you all know, with Mother Nature, once we take the foot off the throat of nature doesn't need us here on this planet. It can turn things around really quickly. So we can turn this around in a blink, environmentally, but also with our marketing and getting food to our people. So if we enable and we sit back and we are open to it, I'm sure we can build structures to make that possible.
I love that. Yes.
One of the things that keeps coming up in the talk seems like you guys have a very clean operation amongst yourselves in terms of clear lines of responsibility, and everybody gets to excel in their own area, and the way you're presenting it sounds like you don't step on each other's toes too much in terms of, it seems like it's beyond even just your family. How do you maintain that kind of lack of conflict within your organisation with all different people leading different things, and yeah.
How do you maintain lack of conflict in your organisation when you've got different people doing different things? Don't be impatient.
I was excited. I'd say the first thing is leave your ego at the gate. Everyone, and respect that everyone's got their own skills. Like, I know some things about sheep, but Mum's way more of an expert on that than I am, and I might have an idea, and many times I do come up, I'm like, why the hell you got those sheep in that paddock? And then she'll turn around and give me her reasonings while I'm like, oh, okay, no, good point, like I'm just the idiot here. Or vice versa. So we definitely do like comment on each other, because just because you're not the person running it doesn't mean you might not have a great idea that you haven't thought about. But like I say, 70% of the time we're sticking to what we are good at. And then, just that collaboration for the other 30% and supporting each other. And then the farm is still ran as a whole. So very regularly we're coming together and having meetings and stuff and talking about everything together and how everything's going to operate with, amongst the cropping side and how the sheep are going to integrate through that as well.
Probably respect is the word. Everyone respects everyone. But what you got to understand, we look at it, the natural intelligence system, we work on the people first. So we've got happy people. Everyone wants to be there. And you find these conflicts just don't happen because everyone's trying their best. And there is muck-ups, that's farming. But we all make muck-ups. And, if we can all smile and have a laugh about it, which is really good. If it's a muck-up through a bad attitude, or which never happens on our property because everyone's got a good attitude, so the muck-ups actually don't happen that often, that's where you might jump on something. But that doesn't happen because everyone's got a positive attitude. And then when something does go wrong, we all have a laugh about it and think, oh, geez, we can get that a bit better next time. So it's about that whole natural intelligence, working on the people, having happy people. And we find that we think, gee, what's our luck? For the casual people that come in, we've got two casuals there at the moment driving harvesters and chaser bins. They're excellent. I just could not hope for any better. But it's amazing how, with the wisdom of it all, it self-sorts itself out. And Nicola and Jane were present to us. We're in Queensland just as the start of harvest doing an event, Di and I. And we'd employed this married couple. They're about our age and really good couple. So they needed to come early, and they actually came a couple of months before harvest started, and we gave them work, and really great. They were great. But just as the day we were about to start harvest, or 2 days before we were about to start harvest, and we were in Queensland on the way back, got the phone call, said, "No, they're leaving." And we're there, holy shit, like totally out of the blue. Didn't expect that, right? And because they'd been offered a big managing corporate job. And I thought, oh, well, if that's what you want to do, fair enough. See you later. And we thought, wow, that was left field. So stuff does happen all of a sudden. Your chaser bin and header driving workforce, half of it's just gone. So we're with Jane and Nicola and that. Next thing, Matty jumped on and he stuck an ad out there, and this young Estonian guy jumped on the phone, and we were driving up the hill up to, where were we going, Nicola? Up to Atherton Tablelands. So this young Estonian fella that I couldn't really hardly understand every second word he was saying, he was talking and we're all in the car. And Jane said, "That's your guy." And Nicola said, "That's your guy." And I said, "But I haven't understood any word that he's saying, And so we pulled up and I said, "No, you got a job, mate. Come out." And this guy's brilliant. Really, really good. I could not ask for any better. Got a young girl come in from New South Wales, 22, absolutely brilliant. So it goes to show, and we see that happen all the time. If someone's probably maybe not quite right or something, they tend to move out of a system and it's replaced by someone really good. It's a self-organising system, and it's we just get really good results. It's just amazing.
Anyone else got any questions here? You've talked about the end of the supply chain. What sort of issues do you have with bringing anything onto the farm, or do you guys not bring anything onto the farm at all, including fuel or anything like that? So the supply chain, what's the supply chain to allow the farm to operate? So at the front end, not at the back end.
What's the supply chain that allows the farm to operate at the front end?
yeah, we bring fuel on board, and we bring on compost, and a few things like the worm liquid and some food for the microbes in the form of fish and seaweed, things like that. So they're the main things that come into the farm, but everything else is pretty well cycled.
Have any problems sourcing those things ever? How do we get around any issues about getting things onto the farm, any supply onto the farm?
Haven't had issues to date, but I guess, who knows what's going to unfold into the future, but we are continuing to work on creating our own fertility sources on farm, because we do have Johnson Sue compost. We're starting some static compost. We've got a couple of worm farms. We just don't have. Once again, we need another person that's another area of expertise, and our eldest son's coming back to the farm now, and that's something he's really keen on as well. So, and that'll change the economic dynamics a bit as well by doing more of that for ourselves. Fuel's a little bit down the track, I think, but I think over time, who knows what technology is going to show there. There's lots of potentials there as well. But yeah, so it's fairly minimal what does need to come on.
Yeah, we try to keep the farm a self-replacing system as much as can. So livestock, it's a closed flock. Grains, we keep all our own seeds, and if we did try another variety, and mainly the varieties that we might try are the really old ones, that we might bring in, we'll kind of isolate it a bit so we know what's going on there. So for our QA, it's all pretty good. We grow a lot of multi-species cover crops. We don't grow a singular hay. We cut for hay and bale our multi-species cover crops, and we just have sheds all around the farm just full of hay. So, if we get a number of droughts in a row, we've just got excess sitting there. As that gets older, it goes back through the compost heaps. So we just circulate it back. Don't really sell any of that off at all. So we just really keep everything as much self-cycling. Mechanical, bring Jared in, build a lot that we can. We run our own road trains so that we can actually get our product to market and bring stuff in that we can actually do all that ourselves. With our compost, we buy in some, what's it called? Aerated compost, and the main reason I do that is there's a good local guy 100 k's away that's doing an excellent job. Now, if I can support his business and he makes that specifically how I want extract quality compost, and he'll fine tune that. So if you can build those relationships, you can create another business off farm. Nutrisoil do a really good job of their worm liquids. If you can support those businesses that support other businesses, we try to do that as much as we can.
Do we have any more questions? No? Well, I think we might call it a day there. Can you please thank Di, Ian and Matt?